This conference will now be recorded.
Well, thank you all for joining me in one more session of our virtual networking. Um, Today's meeting will have three parts as usual. The first part is we're going to go through a round of introductions, so please take a minute or two to introduce yourself, your name, your company, your product or service. Since we're through the magic of the internet, geographically dispersed, maybe where you are, and what a good customer or referral would look like for you. The second part of the meeting is hopefully those short 1 or 2 minute introductions, triggers questions or comments. So we'll open it up so that people can ask, again, questions or comments to anybody else based on the introductions. Dive a little bit deeper on what they do or how they can help each other. And again, feel free also, by the way, to set up meetings, follow up meetings in more detail outside of here. And the third part is, and hopefully we usually have a little bit of time for that, um, is to talk about any business related topic that's of interest to anybody. And frankly, we're living in interesting times, as the Chinese used to say, and I think that was actually intended to be a curse. But between the Fed tightening, inflation, the war in Ukraine, still to this day, supply chain disruptions. And I'll give you guys an anecdotal example, but that it just blew my mind. Yesterday, I was at Wendy's and I ordered a chili. And after I ordered my chili, I asked for a spoon and they told me they had no spoons. So I'm sitting here like, what the hell? The spoons must be made in Ukraine now or something. So we still have supply chain disruptions. So anyway, we'll open it up for that discussion with the goal of getting everybody out of here somewhere between 45 and 55 minutes after the hour. So if you have another meeting starting on the hour, you have a second to take a break, read some emails, text messages, grab a glass of water, and all of that. Please don't forget, put your contact information in the chat. Later tonight, I send out a link to the recording on YouTube and I send out whatever contact information you put in the chat. So if anybody wants to get a hold of you for a follow up discussion or in the future for any reason, they can do that. Conversely, if you don't want me to share something, don't put it in the chat. All right. And the last thing I'll say before we go to the introductions is our next meeting on July the 11th and July the 25th. And Rhoda can check me because I know she's got her calendar right in front of her. But the next two meetings, July 11th, July 25th, we are bringing in guest speakers. For July the 25th, I'm going to jump ahead and I'll let Jennifer go back to the July 11th and introduce Mohammed. And by the way, thank you, Jennifer, because of both of these guest speakers were her connections and her introductions. But anyway, July the 25th, we have a lady by the name of Sherry Dunleavy, previously Sherry McCutcheon, and she has done everything. She has been on radio, she has been on TV. She was the MC for a very big activity we used to have over here called Jamboree in the Hills. She's an author, and now she's working with helping women. And I don't want to steal too much of her thunder, but just to tell you guys the topic, now she's working with helping women overcome grief, which could be almost anything: loss of a loved one, family member, loss of a job, professional situation, whatever the case may be. But basically, overcome grief and come out on the other side even better and stronger. So she's written a book about that. Um, so that's July the 25th. Jennifer, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here. I'm just grabbing the book.
Oh, okay. All right.
I am grabbing the book and I will turn on my camera. I'm suffering from a migraine, so that's why my camera's off. I'm stretched out, but I can sit up and show the book.
Okay,
A
so this is
colleague
now,
of
just
mine,
to be clear, July 11th.
July 11th, my colleague Mohammed F. Anwar wrote this book, Love is a Business Strategy, and it's a bestseller on Wall Street Journal. Anyhow, he will be our guest presenter. He works for a software company. I always get it wrong. I always butcher the name of it. Softway. He works for Softway. I always say PeopleSoft and it's Softway. Anyhow, he's a CEO of an international company and he wrote this book about love and he's very fascinating and I like his message and what he has to say about culture and he walks his talk.
Perfect. So anyway, long story short, please don't miss July 11th and July the 25th. Because we're having two fantastic guest speakers. I actually had the opportunity to have lunch the other day with Jennifer and Sherry because she's local here. So I got to meet her in person. And again, I think she'll give us a really interesting presentation. And Jennifer, you turned off your camera, but let's do something. Why don't you do, we'll kick off the introductions with you and then just keep going around.
Oh, well, for those of you that don't know me, I consult on large complex issues. I have a variety of national and international clients. I also have some political clients. So basically, if it's complex, involves creativity, troubleshooting, I'm willing to talk to anyone.
All right, perfect. Fantastic. Thank you. And I'm just going the order I see people here on my screen. Rhoda, you've been through a bunch of these before. If you could please take a minute or two to introduce yourself to the group.
Hello, everyone from Indianapolis, Indiana. My team and I, for the last 14 years, have been writing what you've been reading when you go on our clients' websites. We are content writers, ghost writers, specializing in blog posts, but also in web content and brochures and press releases. And we are all in Indiana, but the clients are all over the US and Canada. So our aim is to show that our clients are in the know and in the now, so that when people come to their website, what they see is up to date and having to do with what's going on in the world right now. So we will say it for you.
All right, fantastic. Thank you very much. Um, and another local friend. Today we have more people than usual from the Pittsburgh area, which is fantastic. So, Keith, if you want to introduce yourself and also plug your activity over there in Washington, PA.
Hi, I'm Keith Moorhouse. I run a small venture capital fund called Strategic Assets 1 LP. I've got a little networking group out at J&D Cellars Winery. It's called The Street. It's near the Meadows. It's right behind Permani Brothers in that building there. We do wine, jazz, and we bring in an artist, sometimes two artists. And if you know a networking group that wants to come out and we'll let them speak a little bit about their networking group, network with the people we bring in. You get to hear some good music, get to sample some good wines, and maybe purchase some good art. My fund is a venture capital / angel investing fund. I invest in small companies. Not all are startups. Some of them have revenue already. I've got the latest addition to the portfolio is a company that retrieves, kills, and can send satellites into other orbits, either into another orbit that they want to, or push it back into the Earth's atmosphere to burn up. In the next probably 5 years, there's going to be over 70,000 new satellites launched in the world. So there's a lot of space debris out there, and I've been looking for something like this for a while, and it's pretty exciting. The company's called Rogue Space Systems. If you just go on the internet, roguespacesystems.com, and take a look at it. The portfolio is a little smaller. I'm the only general partner. I'm not looking to have a $25, $30 million fund. I don't need that. I'm the only general partner. And like I said, most of the companies have some revenue. Some are angel startups, but the majority of them have some type of revenue. And I've got a company called Arrow that's doing content marketing, Rhoda. So I'm looking at them. They're in due diligence right now. Okay, send it back.
Oh, perfect. And when I send out my email tonight, I will send out Keith's information for his activity over there in Washington, PA. For those of us that are local here to the Pittsburgh area, you can attend. Or hey, Rhoda, if you want to come over from Indiana, you're more than welcome. Do a little bit of a road trip. Paolo, who's also local here to the Pittsburgh area, if you want to take a minute or two and introduce yourself.
Sure, I am. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Paolo Agostinelli. I'm located just outside of Pittsburgh, west of the city. Um, I am the owner of Equitas Funding Group. We're a real estate investment firm. We buy, sell, renovate, rent residential, and now mostly commercial, small commercial real estate. We work with we work with private investors, local community groups, and municipalities. And basically, we're different because we take a very consultative approach to maximizing either the benefit to a seller when they're selling a property to us in terms of maximizing tax benefits or allowing them to perform, structuring a deal that'll be, they can minimize capital gains, give them time to complete a 1031 exchange or whatever the details are. We're actually looking to maximize the benefit of a sale for a seller. Also, one other important, and I'm glad Keith mentioned the JD Wine Cellars. I'm very familiar with them down in Washington, PA. I've been there many times. Um, but also, in addition to my own company, I'm a member of the Pittsburgh Real Estate Investors Association, the Pittsburgh REIA, REIA, and I lead our commercial real estate subgroup. Basically, we're a commercial real estate networking group located in Pittsburgh. We have several hundred members locally and probably thousands nationally, and a couple people who call in from out of the country from time to time. And we're basically a networking organization that helps to support all commercial real estate owners, users of real estate, almost all of our members are small business owners in one aspect or another. So if there's anything that either I could help you out with directly, and probably more important to you, if there's something that someone in my network could help you with, I am always more than happy to make that connection. I just had two back-to-back calls before this where I had enough. There's no direct benefit to me. I was helping make connections with individuals that reached out to me, a couple small business owners who have some unique opportunities and issues, and some of our members I think may be able to help them out. So feel free to reach out if there's any small business or any related topics you'd like to talk about. More than happy to have a conversation, and like I said, connect any dots that I can to that makes sense. So thanks for your time, Sal, and good to talk to all of you this afternoon. Thank you.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And by the way, Paolo does a similar virtual forum. I think he mentioned it. So feel free to put that in the chat. And if you haven't already, and I'll mention it too in my email later tonight, because again, Keith and Paolo and I, we're not shy about co-marketing, sharing information back and forth,
Absolutely.
networking, whatever. So if you want to attend his meeting, which is a little bit more real estate focused, we'll provide everybody with that information.
All right. Great.
All right, moving right along. Bob Molony, if you could take a minute or two to introduce yourself, please.
Sure. Thank you, Sal. I'm Bob Molony with Expense Reduction Analysts. I'm in Conshohocken, Pennsylvania, the other side of the state. Expense Reduction Analysts is the largest cost reduction consultancy in the world. We've got over 800 consultants in 35 different countries, and we're able to provide expertise in 40 different cost categories. So why do businesses engage ERA? Well, because curious, successful executives feel there's additional cash flow that's available in their supply base. And why does it matter now? We're in the most challenging business environment of a lifetime, with rising prices, supply chain disruptions, lean staffs, and salary increases. Savings can be dramatic. Expenses we review are frequently overlooked, where companies don't have the resources or potentially a procurement department to take that deep dive. ERA has completed over 25,000 projects, saving clients over $2 billion. We operate on a success fee that means no savings, no fee. Again, Bob Molony with Expense Reduction Analysts.
All right, perfect, fantastic. And Andrew, I'm still not clear if you're on the phone or the computer, but either way, I know we can hear you. You're muted from your side, so if you could unmute yourself and take a minute or two to introduce yourself, please.
Yeah, am I still coming through there, Sal?
Perfect, loud and clear.
Awesome, thank you. It's so great to meet you guys. I'm sorry that I'm not visible. It means a lot to me in these meetings to be able to see your faces. I just feel like it's such a personal connection. I'm sorry that that you can't see me today. It's great to meet you guys and hear about your businesses. I'm a copywriter. One of the things that I really get out of these meetings, I love hearing you guys describe the businesses that you run and that you've helped start. I like to help businesses make sure that their messaging is clear when you describe your business. And some of you do such a great job of describing what your business does in a way that's succinct and in a way that someone can immediately understand that. And I really learn from that when I hear you guys do that. That's part of what I help other businesses do, is make sure that, you know, when someone goes to your website or sees your marketing material, that what you do and what you sell is really clear. And also has personality and pizzazz to it, because you know, it matters that we have an inviting tone to the way that we describe what we do. So yeah, I'm Andrew. I'm a copywriter. I'm in Franklinton, North Carolina, so not super close to you guys, but also on the East Coast. So nice to meet everybody.
Perfect, perfect. And it doesn't snow over there. I'm gonna take a leap of faith on that. Oh, there we go. Now we can see Andrew. Okay, fantastic.
Look, hi everybody.
Maybe that's what we need to do. We all need to get together here in the Pittsburgh area and rent a van and do a little road trip out to see Andrew.
Come on down. I've
Anyway,
got an acre and a
Larry,
half. You're all welcome.
there we go. Larry, same thing. If you could take a minute or two to introduce yourself, please. Oh, I think you're not muted, but we can't hear you. No. I think you might have the wrong microphone selected here on GoToMeeting. No, still no. Well, I'll tell you what. You try to debug that. We'll come back to you in a second. Um, Let me while Larry tries to figure out what's wrong with his system. Have any?
Is
Oh,
better?
I'll introduce myself and then maybe we'll turn it over to see if any of the Larry. Can you talk now?
Is this good?
Okay, there we go. Perfect. Yeah, go ahead.
Hey, look at that. I'm a technology genius. Um, my name is Larry Isaacson. I'm in the Fort Lauderdale area in Florida. Yes, I'm on the East Coast like a lot of you. Um, and a road trip down here would be wonderful. Um, what we do is we help companies similar to what Bob does to save money in different areas. Right now, we have a program called Same Day Pay, where any uh, employer who has over 10 employees, we help the employees, they can get 50% of their earned wages on after midnight on the day that they earn it. We give it to them as an advance, not as a loan, and we give them an online checking account and a Visa debit card. And this way they could pay their bills. They online. They don't have to go to check cashing stores to cash their check, and they don't have to go to Western Union and all the others to send money orders and everything like that. It helps them save. It actually helps keep more money in their pocket. Okay. We also have a program called commercial payments, where we get our payments. The company can pay their bills online with a virtual card. I don't know if you're familiar with a virtual card, but it's a 16-digit number, just like your credit card, except you only use it once. And once that is used, that number is never used again. It helps eliminate fraud because the amount that you could pay is only the amount that's approved. They can't put it through for a penny more or a penny less. That's there.
We also have a shipping solution where we can help any company that ships over, has a shipping expense of around $50,000 or more a year. We used to be higher at $1 million. We just lowered that recently. And we are able to give them the best price on the day for what they're sending for that particular parcel. So today it might be FedEx, tomorrow it could be UPS, the next day it could be DHL, and then it could be USPS. Whatever it is, the best price, we have them. We also go all the way up to less than truckloads from there. So that's what we have. We have a program that if anybody is interested, where we're able to have you give us referrals, and we compensate you, and you get paid monthly on that for up to almost 10 years for just one referral. So it's very lucrative. Larry Isaacson.
Perfect. Larry, don't forget if you haven't done so, because I'm not looking at it, but put your contact information in the
It's in.
chat.
It's in.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah.
All right, so I will introduce myself. Sometimes I get so excited and carried away in these meetings, I forget to do that, but not today. My name is Sal Acosta. I think I know almost all of you, if not all of you. But anyway, I'm a business broker. I help people buy and sell businesses through the magic of the internet. Originally, I was focused more on the Pittsburgh area, and now I'm working with people all over the United States, which is very exciting. So, if you or anybody you know would like to buy or sell a small business, please let me know. And that's it for this section. How are we doing for time? Okay, right on schedule. Does anybody want to ask any questions from anybody else based on the introductions that they want to dig deeper into what they do or comment or ask a question? Go ahead, Rhoda. But you got to unmute yourself. Yeah.
I want to request that people put their phone number and email as opposed to LinkedIn contact. So I'm thinking of Larry. I have a reason that I would like to contact you, but put your phone number in the chat, please.
All right, perfect. Okay. Anybody else want to mention something or comment or ask something from somebody? Okay. Well, so let's just open it up for general business conversation. And I think we talked a little bit about this last time, but it certainly doesn't get old. If I look at the back half of this year, and maybe I'll stretch it a little bit more, even the front half of next year. So maybe to again June of 2023. What is the probability that you guys are seeing of having a recession? And I know there's a lot of people here that are involved with business or have clients or even just talk to other people. Um, who thinks we're headed into a recession and who thinks we're not and why? Go ahead, Larry.
Well, it looks like, you said earlier with the supply chain, that's hurting a lot of companies and individuals. With interest rates are going to start rising because the Fed is going to try to eliminate a recession, but they probably will cause it. And just businesses are overall down. It's very hard, especially with the supply chain, for businesses to really start growing. And that's why, similar to like what Bob does is, you have to save money somewhere along the line, and it's not happening on the top line. So I think we are, unfortunately. I hope I'm 100% wrong.
Well, does anybody want to take the other side of that argument, Keith?
I'm going to take the argument. There's been so much stimulus money put into the economy, it has to unwind. And usually, when you've got inflation running like it is, the only way to stop it is to raise interest rates at least as high as the inflation rate. That's what Paul Volcker did back with Reagan. And we're not raising rates nearly enough. We're not even a quarter of the way there where rates would go if you look at it that way. I'm looking for a recession starting later this year.
So you're looking for a recession before the end of the year?
Yep. I think we're in one right now. I think it started. I think the lower middle class has just been devastated. The middle
Mhm.
class is close to being devastated. I was down in Myrtle Beach a few weeks ago, and it just didn't seem like there was a whole lot of people there. So every time we went into a store, I'd ask the clerks, and they'd say business is way off. People can't afford the gas.
Yes,
Mm.
Uh,
that's a killer.
Yeah.
if I could add something, and this I'd like to know what Paolo's take is on this as well. But uh, I think that we are headed into a recession if we're not already there. Um, it goes beyond just the cost of living for everyday people. But I live near the Plymouth Meeting Mall. I was just on Friday. I went to a networking group at the Exton Mall, and when you walk into those facilities, it's almost shocking. There are so many empty spaces, and it really is. I mean, I know that a lot of the buying has shifted to the internet, uh, but by the same token, that those are jobs that have gone away on top of the empty spaces. Um, the market has had some ups and downs, but my guess is that we are definitely in a recession, and we've got to take steps um, to be able to adapt to it, because it's not something that you can necessarily control. And uh, like what Keith said, when they push all that money into the economy, I mean, at the end of the day, the economy is a finite uh, set of values, and pushing the paper into the economy doesn't necessarily make the wealth uh, change hands either.
Right. I think we're in stagflation, meaning stagnant
Mhm.
growth, but with inflation. And that's very hard to get out of. We saw that in the
Hey,
70s.
Paolo, I'm going to let you comment because you're
Sure.
probably the guy that's most
I'm loading
knowledgeable
up
about
points
real
here as we're
estate.
talking, but
Yeah, in the group here. But when you comment, could you answer, because this is always what's interesting to me. Could you
sure.
include in your comments, why is it that commercial real estate values really don't go down, rents don't go down, and I mean a lot. I mean, everything that I've heard here has been so negative that you would think, oh my God, rent should be going down 50%. Commercial real estate value should be going down 50% because we're looking at the cliff and headed right for the cliff. Everybody's been really negative, but yet it doesn't happen.
Yeah. So when I get this question, I answer it in two different ways. We're looking at, so if you're looking at, so let me first start about commenting on what was already addressed. Keith's comment about where interest rates need to be with relation to the inflation rate in order for it to have an effect on the economy. I think that's something I've said in my commercial, Pittsburgh area commercial group in the last couple of meetings. Looking at, I mean, even look back at the envelope numbers. I think back in February, and I think I might have mentioned this in my March meeting, where if you, and actually more recently, I think Sal, the last meeting you attended, I made the comment. I said, this is odd to me, in my small corner of the world. This is all odd not odd, but uncommon because we have both supply and demand issues that we're looking to. Usually, when these cycles, at least in my mind, when they happen, it seems to be one side or another. And now we're battling both. We're battling we're battling money supply issues, we're battling inflation there, but then we're also battling, supply issues. So to me, we're getting it on both ends right now. I'm sure the numbers are much worse now, but if you look back in February, I did a back of the envelope analysis, and if you were to compare, February of 2020 to February 2022, and you were to look and say one physical dollar was chasing one physical dollar of goods. As of February, 2 years later, in February 2022, we had $1.28 chasing 92 cents worth of goods. And that number's only just blown up. I mean, not only just because of, $4+ trillion in spending. The Fed continues to print money. There's probably $9+ trillion in circulation now that there were just 2.5 years ago now, barely. So this affects. There's going to be a lot of push and pulls on the market, and those are all the overriding themes, and it's a drag on everything. Now, why do rents continue to go up? Why do so there's a couple different. So you have the retail, you have the residential owner occupant, people wanting to buy and live in their house or rent their home. So housing affordability has become an issue in terms of ownership. Inflation continues to go up, so costs are going up for everyone. I mean, you look at Duquesne Light's going to reset their rates if they haven't already. In some zones, the utility bills are going up 45% in some areas. So costs are a driver of end price. So that's affecting housing affordability in a couple different ways. One, renters aren't able to afford houses as much as they might be able to. So they're whether it's a lifestyle choice, but for some it's not, and they have to, they are, need to, because of affordability issues, they need to continue to be able to rent. But I still expect real estate assets to continue to rise in price because of inflation that's driving rents higher, costs driving higher. So at what point does that bubble pop? One, I mean, on the commercial real estate side, I always, I've ran into a couple examples locally, and I'm trying to make this as short as I can. I apologize. But I've until the debt gets reset of a lot of these commercial assets that have either balloons coming up or their rates are reset, even despite even despite the craziness in rates that's happened the last 3 or 4 weeks, well, that's going to have an effect on prices going forward. But also a lot of these properties that are already maybe struggling on a cash flow basis, people purchasing recently in the last 2 or 3 years, I think those ones that aren't able to cash flow as much, I think they're going to struggle. So some of them are going to struggle. So there's a couple of items there that I think is going to pop that bubble, so to speak. Yeah, I mean, housing affordability continues to be an issue. And there is, I mean, locally in Pittsburgh and nationally, they'll talk about affordable housing and how does that get done? And that gets dragged down in policy, which I could dedicate my next commercial subgroup meeting to that if I wanted to, and I don't. There's so much at play. But basically, I mean, to answer your question about why rents are going up, costs are going up. The dollar just isn't worth as much. Costs for the landlord or the housing provider. I prefer that word better. And then also affordability of being able to afford a home. Now you add the layer of interest rates on top of what the down payment requirements are and everything else. So lack of affordability for people to go out and purchase homes. And I think the rental market in most areas with regards to housing providers, I think that's going to continue to run as long as people are reasonable with their financing, and focusing on cash flow and not purchasing assets thinking, well, in 2 years I think rents are going to continue to increase 10% or 8% or whatever they have been, and in 2 years the valuation will be justified. I don't do that. Most smart people aren't going to do that. So there's a lot of pulls and pushes on the market right now. Like I said, to me, this is I'll end with this point by reiterating one of the first things I said was it's interesting, and not in a good way, but it's just the fact that we're looking at both supply and demand issues, and the fact that the Fed now has to raise rates as quickly as they do. If anyone has any faith that they're going to do so in a manner that's going to soften whatever blow is to come. They've proven that they're not going to be able to do that. And at this point, I don't know how we're going to swing, but whether we're in a recession now or not, there's a lot of indications that we are. But 6 months from now, end of this year, I know we're probably going to be further down the line of the path that we're already on now.
Okay, so let me do an old economics joke, and I'll use it to set up maybe a question related to all of this for the group. Sometimes the question comes up of, what is a depression, what is a recession, right? And I'm not going to go into I think there's an academic definition of 2 quarters back to back with negative GDP growth, whatever. But the joke that I always remember is a recession is when your neighbor loses his job, and a depression is when you lose your job. And so I use that joke to set up the question of, and obviously, we also have an issue of labor force participation, right? Um, because as you guys all know, unemployment is based on the people that are looking for work. So if you've retired or you've simply stopped looking for work, then technically you're not considered unemployed, and the labor force participation rate goes down and all that good stuff. Okay, but long story short, I've heard the argument made a couple times that, hey, we can't really have a recession because everybody's looking for employees. I mean, and I see it from my vantage point as a business broker. What buyers are looking for right now is businesses that have employees. It's almost, frankly, it's not even cash flow. It's not even the industry is. They want to buy a business that has employees because that has become the hardest thing to find. So, long story short, my question is to anybody that wants to take a stab at it: can we have a recession when there's still such a huge demand to find employees, which also, by the way, as far as I can tell, hasn't been translating into so much increases in salaries, maybe at the low end, maybe at the high end. So employers are trying to find workers, but they're not willing to pay more yet. But can we have a recession with such a disconnect and not push pull? And or is it that we'll see the layoffs later in this year or maybe the first half of next year, and it's just waiting to happen? So I'll leave it there for whoever wants to take that ball and run with it.
I'm seeing lots of companies starting to lay off, especially the tech companies.
Yeah.
They're laying people off. Toll Brothers, which is a home builder, was just clipped 45%. So I'm starting to see it. And private equity, venture capital deals were way overvalued a few years back. And I've just revisited several term sheets, and we're just not going to pay what they're asking for. They just can't justify it. And it's a push pull because they think it's worth 10 million. I think it's worth 5 million because of what's going on in the market. I don't see a real rosy picture out there. I see stagflation. And as far as having too many employees out looking for work, that's a tough one, Sal. I think there are a lot of skilled workers. Companies are looking for skilled workers, and they can't find them. And people just don't want to work for $12 an hour. They'd rather sit around and collect unemployment for the other jobs. That's my take on it.
Keith, I think you're spot on. It's good because the way that our economy has shifted is there's a plethora of service related jobs that are exactly that. Not necessarily minimum wage, but necessarily not highly skilled. $15 an hour maybe, and people can't afford to live at that rate either. And on the skilled labor end of it, I think that there is a shortage.
Mm-hmm. Agreed.
Okay. Andrew, any comments? I saw you kind of nodding your head, but
I'm just over here listening and learning. the ins and outs of the economy aren't something I know a lot about, so I really appreciate you guys' input. The only part of it that I'll comment on from my perspective, I live somewhere in the margins between lower middle class and lower class, and I do see a big frustration in what jobs pay. I think that minimum wage was so low for so long, and that was, while a lot of jobs aren't necessarily strictly minimum wage, what the minimum wage is does inform wages. Wages are based off of that, right? So if you want to entice somebody, you pay them $2 above minimum wage. Well, that's still based off of minimum wage. And it's really hard to go to work right now and make, someone's like, oh, we're going to pay you $12 an hour. I can't live on it. It doesn't matter if that's above minimum wage. I can't live on it. And so I do think that the wages have been stagnant for so long. We've got some catching up to do. And that does lead to sort of people are looking for jobs and employers are looking for workers, but we can't find each other right now.
Yeah. Well, let me say this for whatever it's worth, and maybe this is a special case or an outlier, but I was talking to a business owner the other day, and frankly, we're all here business owners in one way or the other, even if it's just our own particular business with maybe no employees. Um, but this was a service business, not in the fast food area for whatever it's worth. But long story short, I was shocked because he said to me, Sal, I don't want to deal with the turnover. More importantly, I don't want to deal with turnover that then they take some of my clients away because they've developed a relationship and they go set up their own little shop, and now some of those clients migrate over there because the relationship is stronger with the individual than with our brand. So long story short, he was telling me 60 to 70% of my revenue I designate to pay employees. Okay. And he left it at that. I don't know if we're talking $12 an hour, $15 an hour. I don't know how that translates into an actual wage rate for his employees. But frankly, I thought, oh my God, you're giving 60 to 70% of your revenues to your employees. That means you're left with 30 to 40% for everything else, including rent at the mall, including your supplies, including everything.
And him
Uh,
getting paid.
so, I said, man, being an employee here is not that bad. I'm getting 60 70% of everything, and I'm not taking any business risk. I'm not providing any capital. I'm not providing anything. If I want to walk out, I walk out. That sounded like a pretty good deal to me. But again, I don't know if that translates to $12 or $15 an hour.
Well, one of the things too is the employees are lagging so much in earnings compared to where everything is going. I mean, 44% of employed workers cannot come up with $400 if they have an emergency of that amount. That's mind-boggling, from there. And the people that live paycheck to paycheck it's staggering. And what it does though is it reduces their productivity because all day long they're worried about their finances and they're not really concentrating on what they're doing and giving it 100%. So it's a real tough situation. And I don't have an answer particularly, how to solve that. But those are the problems that need to be solved, I believe.
Well, let me ask this question, and maybe first by a show of hands, and then maybe we can go to pros and cons and different sides of the argument if we can get people to take different sides of the argument on this one. Um, should the wage be raised? And actually, I'll even say, and to what? Meaning, I know there's a movement for $15 federal minimum wage rate. Other people saying above $10 you'll kill small business. So let me just say, first of all, should the minimum wage rate be increased? Show of hands. Yes, no, one, two, so. Oh, Jennifer, you're muted.
My answer is no.
Answer is no. Okay. Well, then maybe you can take the no side. Um,
I'm afraid to answer because I don't know where that number needs to be or where it should be
That's true.
for both sides of that equation. I mean, we didn't, we didn't institute a $15 minimum wage, but during COVID, we kind of backed into it based on all the COVID relief money and everything else, and that seemed to be the threshold. So a $15 minimum wage was not federally enacted, but when you looked at unemployment benefits at the time, that $15, $16 essentially was indirectly backed into based on the COVID monies that were out there for about a year and a half. So then what's the amount over that you had to pay someone to make it justify to make it worth their while to not collect unemployment? And is it 18, is it 20, is it 22? So I don't know where that number needs to be. So that's why I was indecisive with my answer about a minimum federal, because I don't know what that number needs to be for all sides concerning. But anyways.
Yeah.
Uh,
Well, no, and let me just say this from my perspective, right? If you go and you say, which I think is a fair statement, right? You go and say, okay, listen, guys, let's be realistic here. People can't live on less than $15 an hour, right? Because you got to pay gas, you got to pay rent, you got to pay maybe daycare in some cases. I mean, you have all these expenses that you need to be able to pay in terms of your being able to show up to work, right? Again, you got to pay the gas, the daycare, you got to live somewhere, the rent, the this, that, the other thing. The problem is, and maybe I'm more sensitive to, and small business owners, maybe big companies can have more resources to deal with this. But if you're a small business owner, you get thrown into the red because you're got a sandwich shop, a beauty parlor, whatever the case may be, then you're just going to close it. Then the employee is not going to have a job at $10 an hour. He's not going to have a job at 15. You're just that job and that business just disappeared. If you're a big company, and I know for a fact we used to do this all the time, you look at that $15 an hour and you start looking at automation. Okay, can I automate some of these processes? Can I simplify them? Artificial intelligence, robots, this, that, and the other thing. And maybe I can't automate it completely, but when I used to have 100 employees, maybe I only need 75. So if you're in those 75 that are getting the $15 an hour, you're golden. But if you're in those 25 that got replaced by the automation, then you got zero. And the last point I'll make on this, and maybe this is a little bit of a niche, but with demographics, this is going to become even more and more serious. I know there's a lot of older folks out there that need a little bit of help. Okay, they don't have to necessarily be at the level of being in a nursing home or having a full-time, but they need somebody to come in for 3-4 hours to help them with maybe a little cleaning, a little cooking, a little this, a little that. Maybe they can afford $10 an hour because they're on Social Security. They can afford to pay somebody $10 an hour, because all they're getting is Social Security. When you raise that to $15 an hour, that person that is on Social Security, and Social Security gets indexed to inflation, but it's not that much, whatever, they may not be able to afford that help anymore. So what happens to that person that is 80, 90 years old that now can't afford that 3 or 4 hours a day that they need to stay in their home? I'll leave it at that.
And that's an issue anytime you institute I don't want to say artificial, but when you institute a line in the sand on what someone's cost should be, or you're always going to have those, unfortunately, you're going to have those counterbalances, those counter issues that come up. And that, which happens quite a bit when policy is written up that way. So
yeah,
Well, also, if I could say, $15 an hour is not a lot of money that what comes to the employee. That's $32,000 a year. Less tax, let's say they don't pay taxes, they still have Social Security taken out. I mean, before they turn around, their pocket's empty. And, you know, that isn't a solution either, I don't believe.
I mean, $15 an hour now is 13.08 or $13 an hour 2 years ago. And it's probably even less now with the way gas prices have been going, among other assets.
I listened to an interview with Warren Buffett, and he came up and said that a dollar when he was born is worth 9 cents today. That's
That's significant.
yeah. And he said if I would have known that, I would have said to my mother, "Keep me a little while longer."
Oh, let me tell you guys, and again, maybe this is the benefit of being a little older, and maybe you can relate more directly to these things because inflation is frankly a little bit hard to relate to. But here, I'll throw out my benchmark, right? I remember when I was, and this is in high school, so it wasn't even like a grade school, but this is in high school. You could go to a Coke machine and get a Coke for 30 cents. Okay. Now I don't know what they're running at, but anywhere from $1 to $1.50, right?
Almost two.
Almost
$2.
two. There you go. So 30 cents in, call it 1976, 78 to the $2. That is how I understand inflation.
I look at it the same way, Sal, as with but I look at it from a candy bar perspective. I remember nickel candy bars and that are now $2.
Well,
There you go.
and one of the ways I look at inflation now is, you know, with consumer prices going up as rapidly as they are, consumers, investors, anyone has a choice to make. They could either save their money, keep it under a mattress, and try to create their rainy day fund. They could go out and over purchase goods they know they're going to need in the future because they're going to protect themselves from that inflation because they don't want to buy butter next month that's going to be 10% more than what it is now. And as a result, so the inflation is causing people to not hoard, but maybe make decisions based off of where they think pricing is going to go, which results in them not being able to, not being able to have savings for a rainy day fund, and then also not being able to invest in something else. Because I mean, literally, I could go to Walmart and buy butter and save myself 10% next month by buying it now. So what other investments are going to give you 10% right now, guaranteed? Maybe an exaggerated point, but that's another couple of minor ways how inflation in the near term is affecting people in terms of their savings and in terms of having money to save and also having money to invest and grow, whether it's an individual on a consumer basis going to Walmart buying butter or a business owner who wants to invest in their business going forward. There's a lot of layers to this. A lot to get
Okay,
your arms
guys,
around.
we're at 2:56, so I do want to get you out of here like a minute ago. One very last comment before we disband, because this has been a fascinating conversation. Hopefully, it's been instructive for everyone. But who wants to make the absolute last comment?
I will on this on the minimum wage topic. That is the one area that I believe that government involvement is probably the least necessary, and I think we've seen that supply and demand has taken over in a lot of cases, and the wages have increased in response to supply, and to me that's the way it should be working. You can't dictate how much a business person can pay their staff. That's something for them to figure out. Um, and I don't know, just my opinion.
Amen.
All right, well, fair enough. We'll leave it with that. We'll close out with that. Obviously, we can take up again. In 2 weeks, we have our two guest speakers. As soon as I get that material out, I'll email it out. Thank you all for joining me, and thank you for contributing to the discussion. And I'll send out the link to the video and the stuff from the video chat and the chat. And so, thank you all very much, and I hope I can see everybody again in 2 weeks.
Thank you.
Thanks, Sal.
Thanks, Al.
Take care.
Thanks, Al.
Bye
Take
bye.
care.
Bye.
Bye-bye.